guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the last one on best things to do at the Disney theme parks, and today of course it's on Epcot. Epcot is one of those parks that has definitely grown on me a lot. When I was a kid I really didn't like Epcot, mainly because they didn't have rides and I wasn't like into food or anything like that. I mean, I mainly just ate mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, which, let's be real, I still mainly eat mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. But as I become an adult, I can appreciate the countries more, I can appreciate the food and wine more. I hope you guys are super excited, and let's talk about Epcot. So the first thing I'm going to mention is the Frozen ride over in Norway. So this is kind of sentimental in a weird way for me. About 3 or 4 years ago, right before my uncle died, the very last communication I had from him was an email, and in the email he had sent my whole family saying like, oh look how cool this is, they're doing a new ride in Disney World, it's the Frozen ride, and that was like the last communication I had with him. So it was really weird for me as a cast member to just like see it come to life and be able to ride it. I wrote it I think like a month before I left. It came out a month before I left the company, and that was just really cool for me, and I guess weird for me. Like that was like the last thing I talked to him about was that ride, and I was actually going on the ride. So for me, I had a lot of like sentimental reasons why I liked it, but in addition to that, the queue for the ride is really cool. It feels like you're in Arendelle. The way they did it is so amazing. And then the ride itself, it features some really cool technology like with animatronics and some different things I feel like they haven't done before. It just shows how great Disney is when it comes to their animatronics and even like their Imagineering. Their Imagineering is just phenomenal. I feel like that's really what sets Disney apart. So if you haven't had the chance to go on it, I would highly suggest you do. Hopefully by now the wait times have gone down. It's been like 2 years since it's opened, but if it is still crowded, try getting a fast pass or going early in the morning. Another Frozen thing I would highly recommend you do is meet Anna and Elsa in their summer house. For those kids, I know there's not a lot of different things you can do at this park that kids will just absolutely love, but this is so cool. When you're walking through the queue, it is literally like you're going through their house. You get to see the little dolls of them, you get to see portraits of their family, and the way they did the set design and the way they designed this entire like queue. Again, I'm really into queues and the detail. I feel like Disney does such a phenomenal job with the little details, and even just walking through I think is really cool. So this is a really great place to take your kids, especially if they love meet and greets, or for those adults that are like me that love to meet characters. This is really cool, and if you're a Disney nerd, you'll also be able to really appreciate the way that Disney has designed the summer house. One of my favorite rides to do when I'm at Epcot is Soarin. It used to be Soarin' over California, and I used to love going this ride when I was a kid over at California Adventure. It was one of my favorites, and so it was really nice to go on that when I was in Epcot or when I was in Florida, because it was a little bit of a piece of home. Right before I left, they changed it again, and so they've made a lot of changes at Epcot in recent years, but they changed Soarin' to be Soarin' over California to be just Soarin', and you're soaring over different parts of the world. And to be honest, I had no idea how dated the Soarin' over California video was until I saw Soarin'. The video was phenomenal, and it was so cool. Feel like you're getting to go to all these different countries and you see all these different animals. It was a really unique experience. I already loved the ride to begin with, but then once they did the update, I loved it even more. I wish I could go on it more. I didn't go on it a lot right before I left because they had just redone it right before I left, but hopefully I get to go on it more in the future. Of course, I'm going to mention Test Track. This was my brother's favorite ride when we were a kid. I say this all the time, but really it was unlike anything else that we had ever seen before, because it wasn't a roller coaster, it wasn't like a slow ride. I feel like those were the only types of rides I had known up until that point, and it was a kind of a combination between the two. If you haven't gone on it recently, maybe you went on it 10 years ago, they had done some updates. 10 years ago, it was more like you were the dummy, like, you know, a car crash dummy. Even in the queue as you're walking through, you saw different car crash dummies. And then now, since with all the technology updates, with the Fast Pass and even the Magic Bands, what they did now is you can like create your own car, and then it's like you're testing out your car. So they've definitely updated it with the technology updates that have come to the park, which I think is really cool. And if you guys have been to Disneyland a lot or in recent years, in California Adventure they have the Cars ride, which was built off of the exact same track as Test Track was in Epcot. So if you already like that ride, it's pretty much the exact same ride, just a little bit different of a concept, and it's still a lot of fun. Of course I'm going to recommend it. There's not a lot of rides to recommend in Epcot anyways, but it's definitely one of the more fun ones. If you guys love meeting characters, I would highly recommend meeting the characters in all their different countries of origin. So what I mean by this is that you can meet the different characters in the countries where their stories came from. So Snow White meets in Germany, you have Aurora and Belle meeting in France. I think sometimes Cinderella's there too, but I think Aurora's the one now that's there and she replaced Cinderella. You also have Alice and Mary Poppins in England. So it's really cool because they're meeting guests in the countries where their stories came from. You also have Anna and Elsa in Norway. I forgot Mulan. Mulan also meets in China too. You have lots of different character meet and greet opportunities. It's just a kind of fun way if you have kids too who maybe aren't as familiar with these stories but they're curious to know where these stories came from. It could be a really good way to like figure out like, oh, I wonder which country like the story of Beauty and the Beast came from. So I just thought it was a fun way to connect the characters back to their countries of origin. I was having kind of a hard time thinking of things and fun things to do at Epcot. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I remembered Turtle Talk with Crush. Oh my gosh, I didn't even do this, I don't think, when I was working there, but I had done it before in California Adventure. They also have it there in the animation building, and I've done it before with the little kids. That was the first time I did it because I just thought it was a little kid thing. But even if you're an adult and you aren't with like little kids, it's still so fun because basically you'll always have little kids there and they'll ask Crush the funniest questions, and sometimes they'll ask them really random questions, and it's kind of like a comedy. I would say it's like a comedy type show. It's not even like a show though, it's like a meet and greet. It's hard to explain, but if you haven't done it, I would highly suggest it. It takes about maybe like 10-15 minutes. It's pretty short, but it's super entertaining, and especially if you have little kids, they will absolutely love it. When it comes to restaurants, one of my favorite places to go is the French Bakery. Oh my goodness, they have so many delicious baked goods. I especially am a huge sucker for creme brulee, and they have the most amazing creme brulee. They also have macaroons, they have those as well, and they have crepes. They have so many good things. They also have like a gelato place there too, which is super fun. If you haven't had a chance to go to the different countries yet and just try out a food or even like a beverage, I would highly suggest it. It's just so much fun, especially if you're there during the Food and Wine Festival. It's amazing. They have so many more different booths set up. They have booths set up from both like the countries that are already there, but then they have other countries represented too that you wouldn't normally get to see, like the Czech Republic, Dominican Republic. It's so cool. So I would highly suggest going to the French Bakery, especially if you're a sweet tooth like me. I would mainly suggest this next one if you're an adult, but if you haven't gone to the British pub, I'll link down the name, the actual name of it. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but if you haven't been to the British pub, it is so much fun. So when my boyfriend was visiting me, his parents were there too. They would often did a couple rides, or they went off on their own, so we were like, oh, we have some hours to, to spare. What do you want to do? So we just walked into the British pub. It was a little crowded that night, but it was so much fun. It was kind of rambunctious. You had this gal playing on the piano, the Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious song, and everyone was singing, and it was super loud, and it was so fun. It's like in those movies whenever you see like an Irish pub or a pub scene, and everyone's just like super excited, or even like in Beauty and the Beast when they have that pub scene, and everyone's just like loud and having a good time. Like that's what it was. It was so much fun, and then we also got a flight of beers, and their beers were really, really good. It was fun being able to try different ones. So maybe that's just me. I just had a really fun like memory with him going there because it was something that wasn't like pre-planned fun, if that makes sense. Like when you go on a ride, you expect to have fun. When you go to like a character dining experience, you expect it to be a certain level of fun, but there I was going in with like zero expectations, and I had a lot more fun than I thought I would. So I really liked it, and if you guys haven't been there before, I would highly suggest going. Another dining experience I would recommend that is a little bit more on the pricier side is going to the Seas restaurant, or even just going to the Seas area in general if you haven't been over there. It's basically like this huge aquarium. They also have the Talk with Crush, that's where that is, and they also think have a Finding Nemo ride, which is pretty cool. But you can see all this kind of bigger sea life too, like they have manatees and dolphins and sharks. It's so cool. On the other side of part of this aquarium, there is a restaurant. I'll link down the name down below, but it's really cool because when you're in the restaurant, you can see this huge wall, and it's like part of the aquarium. So all the big fish you would see in the aquarium are just like right there in the restaurant, and it's so cool. It is kind of pricey, but it's a really unique experience, and it's just kind of fancy. If you're looking for something more fancy to do, this is something that you would like to do, especially if you like seafood. I don't like seafood, to be honest, but this restaurant did stand out in my mind when I was a kid. I just remember thinking it was so cool. We got a table right next to the aquarium glass, and just seeing all of the fish just swim by was so neat. I was gonna say cool again, but I didn't. And the last thing I wanted to recommend to you guys is going to Via Napoli and getting the biggest pizza they have. It's literally about half the size of me. I think it's like 3 feet long. It's huge. It's this big pizza. I would go with my friends and we would all just like split it. And then we'd always have leftovers too. Like, it's this huge pizza. But Via Napoli is a really great Italian restaurant. It's a sit-down restaurant. So if you're looking for someplace to kind of sit down and chill and have that kind of dining experience, but you don't want something as fancy as like the C's restaurant, this is a really great option. It's not character dining, but it's still a really great experience, and they have tons of different options when it comes to Italian food. So I don't know if you guys are like me, but Italian food for me is just the biggest comfort food, and that's something I could always eat whenever. Like, it's just one of those foods, like if I'm craving anything, I'll always just be like Italian or Mexican. Those are like my top. Oh, I forgot Mexican. Okay, number 11. I know I tried to do top 10, but 11, there is this Mexican restaurant, and I'll have to link again down below the name of the restaurant and then the what the dish I like to get. It's so good. It's like this rice bowl, but it also has these like pickled onions in it, and it's so good. That was like my favorite thing to get. If I could go there, I would always tell my friends, like, we need to go to this restaurant and get like my favorite rice dish. It's so good. Honestly, pretty much all the restaurants in Epcot are really good, because even like the Chinese restaurant, I used to go there sometimes when I was working in Norway. I'd be working at that restaurant there, and so we could go to the Chinese restaurant next door, and it was so good. So there's a lot of great food options. I know I didn't even mention the character dining experience. There's a lot of great things to do at Epcot. Obviously, I'm having a really hard time narrowing it down to 10. So I'm sure you guys will have lots of favorites that I didn't mention, but I'm trying to keep to 10, so those are my top 10 things to do when you're at Epcot. Please let me know what I forgot, because I'm now realizing I forgot a ton. And I'd love to hear from you guys. I have lots of other Disney videos planned in the future. I know someone mentioned doing one on the water parks. I don't know if I'd have 10 things for you guys to do at each of the water parks. They're significantly smaller from the theme parks, but maybe I could combine the two and do top 10 things to do at both Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach. But I love hearing from you guys and hearing your suggestions, so please leave any suggestions you have down in the comments down below. If you like this series, give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!